on this day, 1981, the hugely underseen and underrated Sylvester Stallone World War II POW/soccer movie Victory opens in theaters. And we're back, like we never left. Welcome to episode 259 of the Confessions of a Not-So-Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of this Tuesday morning with me here in New York. Once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. Today marks the 43rd anniversary of the release of what I would say is, number one, the most underrated film in Sylvester Stallone's entire career. Number two, one of the best sports movies ever made. And number three, one of the most bonkers stories overall that I've ever seen. It's so bonkers, you say, well, it has to be true. This is so outlandish and absurd. Nobody could ever come up with something as ridiculous as this. Well, someone did. And I loved this movie from the first time I laid eyes on it. Back in 1982, when it premiered on good old HBO, or maybe it was Cinemax. We got both of them when I was growing up. But on this day, July 30th, 1981, the late great filmmaker John Huston, who 40 years earlier did The Maltese Falcon with Bogey and Peter Lorre and Sidney Greenstreet and Mary Astor. John Huston also acted in Chinatown as Noah Cross, the guy who kept purposely mispronouncing Jack Nicholson's name. His name is J.J. Gittes. Mr. Gittes, Mr. Gittes, Mr. Gittes, Mr. Gittes. But John Huston assembled an unbelievable international all-star cast for the movie. Well, it was actually originally titled Escape to Victory. And for whatever reason, in the United States, it was just known as Victory. It was a box office hit. It made about 2.5 times its production cost, so not an enormous hit. But it made a big splash because there were so many famous World Cup level soccer players in the movie, championed by Pele. Now, Pele, as an athlete, was past his prime. He was not nearly as great a soccer player, or football if you prefer. They just keep calling it football in this film. And for people like me, what the fuck are they talking about? This is soccer, not football. And Stallone, as the kind of ugly American, he has the same issue. It's a fucking soccer game, people. Stop calling it football. Well, that's what they call it in Europe. This freaking soccer game is ruining my life. Great moments of history, Stallone saying that line. Hey, yo, Colby, where do I stand for a corner kick? Some immortal lines. Hey, you don't want to get shot as a spy, do you? Hey, yo, I don't want to get shot as anything. It's an unbelievable line. Top 10 great lines in the history of Sylvester Stallone's career. You don't want to get shot as a spy, do you? Hey, yo, I don't want to get shot as anything. I don't want to get shot as anything. What the hell's the difference if it's being shot as a spy or they just decide to shoot me because I'm wearing a hat that they don't like? I don't want to get shot as anything. No, thank you. I'm all set here. So the insane plot of this movie, it's set during World War II. I assume sometime before D-Day, like maybe 43, 44. And as a kid, just watching this movie, and I played soccer. Soccer was big in Massapequa. I guess all across Long Island, but it seemed especially prevalent in Massapequa where I grew up. Everybody played soccer. Massapequa Soccer Club. I had a jacket that said Massapequa Soccer Club. Ooh. Soccer was big. And there was a lot of the kind of philosophical and political wartime stuff that didn't land watching this movie as a 7 or 8-year-old kid. It's all just went right over my head. But the story is this. It's not complicated. It's just batshit insane. You have, and this is something that happened, many professional athletes. You look at Major League Baseball, Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, Frankie Frisch. You had a lot of big-time, huge stars, professional athletes, but baseball was front and center because baseball's America's pastime. It was a bigger deal when Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams went overseas to take part in World War II than someone who played hockey. Now, it was a big deal if you were a hockey fan, but certainly more so than now. Baseball was America's pastime, and it is our sport. It is an American sport. It was actually invented here, like we didn't crib it from someone else. Baseball was born in the United States of America. So in wartime, you had these professional athletes. You had a lot of actors. Jimmy Stewart was a war hero. Henry Fonda served with distinction, ended up serving. And to my knowledge, I'm not 100% in this, but I don't think any major stars in sports, at least from the United States, died during the war effort. And I don't think there were any high-profile POWs, certainly not of the level of DiMaggio, Williams, and that ilk. In the world of this film, many of Europe's best non-German soccer players, in real life, they contributed to the war effort, but in the world of this movie, there are a lot of them that are prisoners of war, is how I'll phrase it. So some of the best football players in Europe took part in the war effort, and a handful of them were taken prisoner by the Nazi regime in what I guess is supposed to be occupied France. And they're in a prison camp, like The Great Escape, like Stalag 17, like The Bridge on the River Kwai. It's the same kind of concept but in the world of this movie, you have these phenomenal soccer players who are prisoners of war. They might as well be doing something else. So they keep fit. They're playing, I'm just going to call it soccer. I'm sorry. They're playing soccer in a prison camp. And Michael Caine, Sir Michael Caine, two-time Oscar winner, plays a man named John Colby, who is presented as a top 10 best soccer player in all of Europe. This is a World Cup competitor, an internationally renowned athlete. Now, backing up Sir Michael Caine, you have actual internationally renowned soccer players of the era, 60s, 70s, and this movie was shot in 1980, 81, in the cast. And huge names led by, as I said, Pele, but also other World Cup winners such as Osvaldo Ardiles, Bobby Moore, Mike Summerby, Werner Roth, and a number of other guys whose names I can't really rattle them off. But those are the main ones who I know. And some of them played on the so-called German national team in the world of this film. Like Werner Roth was a World Cup guy, and he actually played in, I forgot the name of the soccer league that Pele was involved with in the late 70s. Werner Roth was actually on his team at one point, and he plays a member of the German team. So you have these incredible athletes who happen to be prisoners of war. And another late, great, extraordinary actor, Max von Sydow, Father Merrin in The Exorcist 8 years earlier, for reference, and he was in Bergman's The Seventh Seal, most famously in the 50s. But Max von Sydow, I hate to use the phrase sympathetic Nazi, but he kind of is. He doesn't really seem as if he's into the war effort very much. He actually says to Michael Caine's character of John Colby, I would rather that we all just settled our differences on the pitch. Meaning, let's play, let's have an athletic contest, and we'll abide by who the winner is. We don't need to fucking kill people like we don't. He doesn't appear to be on board with any of it, but somehow he's a member of the German High Command. And he recognizes Colby. He has seen him play. And he respects him. This guy's a phenomenal player. This is a great athlete. We have all of these great athletes here. There's got to be something we could do. Now, he doesn't say this, but it's implied. He doesn't like what's going on. He doesn't say anything about Hitler or Himmler or Eichmann or anything like that. The movie is not heavy, but then again, neither is The Great Escape, neither is The Bridge on the River Kwai, and neither is Stalag 17. There is a lot of horrendous stuff that is mostly implied. You get a little bit more of it actually here than in some of those other films. But Max von Sydow as Major Steiner, again, very high ranking. He's obviously a very good officer. Whether or not he's that committed to whatever the fuck they're doing, that we don't know. But we can assume he has more human qualities because he's not exerting authority on Colby. He's having a normal conversation, and out of context, it could just be two guys talking about sports. So he comes up with an idea that he's pretty sure is going to fly with the high command. How about I let you guys train for a World Cup level style soccer match against the German national team? What do you say? Well, if it means we're going to get better food, better living quarters, better training equipment, let's do it. I understand you're doing it for propaganda. I'm not fucking stupid here. You're going to try to humiliate the Allies in front of the world on a soccer pitch, but I'm telling you, if we play this fair, we're going to give your guys a run for your money. That's exactly what Max von Sydow wants. He wants a real athletic contest. He doesn't want a sham contest with fake, fixed officials. He wants to play a game. You know, the movie War Games, would you like to play a game? He wants to see it, and he wants to take part, not as a player, but as an observer. So that's the setup. You have these European prisoners of war, phenomenal soccer players, are training to play a propaganda match against the German national team, and it's going to be at a kind of neutral site somewhere in occupied France. Now, Sylvester Stallone, this movie, the leanest that he ever was, he took it seriously. We know Sly can get shredded, but he not only is shredded in this film, but he toned down his weight workouts to the point where he just looks like a fit guy who's probably about 155, 160. This is the lightest that he ever was for a movie, I believe. Stallone plays the ugly American. And not literally, but he sticks out like a sore thumb. He has the American attitudes. He has the kind of snarky, almost Generation X attitude that you would expect from an American. It's odd because the film is set in the 40s, but Sly has a very contemporary worldview that they gave his character of Robert Hatch. Now, his connection is, he's a good athlete. He's not a soccer player. He's not a soccer player. He does, however, have connections with the French underground. He knows people in the French underground. And he realizes that given the parameters of what is explained to him by Sir Michael Caine's character of John Colby, we do this right. We may get the shit beat out of us playing this stupid soccer game, but we'll have an opportunity to escape. And we will trump these motherfuckers. We will embarrass them. Their goal is to fuck with us. We're going to put it right back on those sons of bitches. Let's go. Let's fucking go. So he tries to take part. He's okay on the field, but he's playing with guys that are real soccer players. Comes up a little bit short. So he then decides to be an athletic trainer. And they can kind of get that through. But circumstances dictate. It doesn't go the way we expect. And mild spoiler, Sly stages an escape. But unfortunately, the French underground, it's not good enough. Because they see the bigger picture and they say, you got to go back. You got to get yourself recaptured. And we're going to do this the right way, and we're going to get everybody out of there, and we're going to stick it to these motherfuckers. Again, this is the idea. They're not doing this for shits and giggles. They're not doing this just to show Allied superiority in a soccer match. We're going to escape. We're going to humiliate these fucks. They think they're going to do it to us? Ain't happening. Not today. So Stallone, as Robert Hatch, because, again, a little bit of contorted idiot plot syndrome here, he ends up having to be the goalkeeper because they're not allowing them to just take an athletic trainer. And because of Hatch's escape, it's great that his name is Hatch, like he hatches an escape plan, and then Stallone makes the movie Escape Plan with Arnold more than 3 decades later. This was like the dry run for Escape Plan. But von Steiner, as much as he's sympathetic and wants to see a real match, he can't let Sly just be an athletic trainer. He says, "Listen, son of a bitch," or he doesn't say the son of a bitch already escaped, but that's the idea. You want the American? No, not going to work. And then Colby, on the fly, and Caine is brilliant in this scene, he says, listen, Hatch is my goalkeeper now because the kid that was in goal broke his arm. You got to let me at least have a goalie, Major. Okay, you're right. You got to have a goalie. If you can prove to us that the kid really did break his arm, then yes, of course you can take the American to play goal. No problem. And then this, when I talk about the movie doesn't just tease really horrifying shit, it shows it. We see the character of Colby literally break the arm of their goalkeeper because there's no other way to do it. The only way they can play the game and escape at halftime, escape to victory, they're going to have, Stallone's got to be there. Hatch has to be the guy. Breaks the kid's arm. It's an absolutely horrendous scene. And then we set up and go to Paris. And we're led to believe that Robert Hatch, he actually has the makings of a good goalkeeper. He just has never really played goal. But he's good enough where with the on-the-job training, and he has the reflexes, if they could play some good defense and he can kind of stay where he's supposed to be, maybe you won't have to make that many big saves. Maybe we'll be able to keep the ball away from you, whatever it is. So they go to the stadium to play the game. And there's all these contortions of plot, all of which I found fascinating even as a kid, where you have the French resistance, you have the Allied POWs working with the French resistance, and it all comes down to they're not playing this game to actually win the game as far as score. They are simply showing up, and at halftime, they are going to fly the fucking coop. They are getting out of there, and every one of these motherfuckers will have egg on their faces when they realize we just got one-upped. And by an American, no less. An American. Needless to say, it wouldn't be much of a movie if it was just them escaping at halftime. Now, Pele, the real Pele, he plays a character called Luis Fernandez. And just from what we see of him in the film, he's probably the best soccer player in the world, just as the real Pele was. Even as he's a little bit older, I think he's probably supposed to be playing slightly younger. I don't think that Pele was actually playing, he's 40 or however old he would have been at the time. I think he's supposed to be younger. But Pele was still just an impossibly gifted athlete with this amazing athleticism and acrobatic ability. So the real Pele designed all of the kind of main soccer plays in the film from his own experience. And John Huston, as the filmmaker, was able to shoot enough stunts. They're not really stunts. They would be considered stunts if these guys weren't such incredible soccer players. But there is such beauty and poetry in this kind of World Cup sequence which climaxes the film. And it's more than a half hour of the movie. It's a huge part of the film is this big World Cup style match with the Allied POWs versus the German national team. Pele's character of Luis Fernandez gets injured early in the match. And the Allies are getting the shit beat out of them. They're down, I think, 3 goals. And Stallone, as Robert Hatch, he makes a couple of stupid mistakes because he's not really a goaltender. And one of them is that you understand why. He's trying to see what's going on the other side of the field. Because he's all the way here in goal, and he just kind of wanders away from the net, and it more or less costs them a goal. And Colby, Michael Caine screaming, listen, stay on the line, stay on the bloody line. And then later he does it again, and Michael Caine, I love it, he screams, stay on the bloody line, just stay on the bloody line. Stop wandering away from the fucking net. What do you think you're doing out here? Stay on the fucking line. He starts to stay on the line, and his play improves. He makes a couple of good saves towards the end of the first half, and the Allies score a goal. They score a goal as we go into halftime, and the place is cheering. It's time to escape. Now, there really hasn't seemingly been much in the way of what you would call character development in this story. But the moment where they're about to escape, we suddenly realize that there's more to Stallone's Robert Hatch than we've been led to believe, than he has shown. There is something in him that doesn't just want to escape. Yeah, sure, we get out of here. They'll have egg on their faces. They'll be embarrassed. But they'll be more embarrassed if we go out there and we kick the shit out of them and we win this game. Let's go get them. So rather than escape, the entire movie is building to them escaping at halftime, and then Stallone gets talked into coming back. You know what? Fuck them. Let's go out and play. And the reaction of the Allied High Command, they're prisoners of war, but they're kind of also in different quarters, but they're at the game. Daniel Massey, great actor, he has a hilarious reaction because he's applauding as the Germans are coming out at halftime because, nobody knows our guys are probably 5 miles away already. And then here they come out to play the second half. And he's just looking. He's like, He can't believe what he's seeing, and that never fails to crack me up because it's so surprising, and the guy's facial expressions are incredible. So the second half unfolds, and the Allies really start taking it to the Germans, and we are unfortunately led to believe the refs are in on a fix. It's supposed to be, if the Allies make it close, they're going to start fucking around, and they are going to not call the game fair. But the Allies are taking it to the Germans. They are bringing it, and they are running them off the field. And they get a tying goal, but of course, the refs whistle, disallowed. No goal, disallowed. It's a bullshit call, something about being offside. So there's maybe a minute left in the game, and it looks like after all of this, the Allies are going to lose anyway, and they're going to have to go back to there, because now they can't escape. How are they going to escape? The idea was they were going to escape at halftime. That's gone. As soon as the game is over, soldiers are going to round them up and they're going to go back to the fucking prison camp. Pele waves his hand, even though he's probably got 2 or 3 broken ribs, and he has to kind of hold his side because the ribs are broken so bad. He says, I feel better. Let me play. You can't play. I feel better. I must play. So Pele goes out there and does what Pele does from the iconic perspective. And Pele's acrobatics, his athleticism, it's one reason why this film is compulsively rewatchable, because he was such a special talent and a special athlete. So there's very little time left. He gets the ball and he starts doing his, almost magic act, a magical feat of his. And he ends up positioning himself in front of the goal, but with his back to the goal. And a famous footballer named Bobby Moore, I think it was. Bobby Moore, I don't remember the name of his character, is near a position where you would take a corner kick. He's off to the side. And he hits the ball up into the air. And this is where John Huston's visual abilities as a director, because he had to see this. It's one thing for Pele to say, I know how to deliver a certain kind of kick, but how do you shoot it? How many cameras do you use from how many angles, and how do we cut this when it's all said and done? So he hits this ball way up into the air, and time slows down. It goes into slow motion, which often is like, oh God, because you did it in the Rocky movies, Stallone, I'm sure, got a kick out of the fact it was like a Rocky movie. The ball goes up in the air, and there's like 6 German defenders and Pele. There's no other Allied players in the area. He's probably about 15 feet in front of the goal, but he has his back to the goal. He can't head the ball in. Ball goes up, and then suddenly the camera does almost a close-up on Pele as he starts running towards his right. And if you don't know what you're looking at, you're saying to yourself, what is he doing? Why is he running that way? Why isn't he turning around and trying to head the ball in or something? He jogs to one side, stops in place, and as the ball descends, he jumps in the air backwards and hits what's known as a bicycle kick right by the goalie. And there ain't no offside call because there's 5 or 6 German defenders behind him. He knocks the ball in backwards. And as a child watching that, it's still one of my favorite moments in any movie ever. And I probably watched it 1,000 times. I never get tired of seeing it. The athleticism, the beauty, the magic of Pele within the context of this real kick-ass motion picture. They tie the score. And then the refs make another idiot call. And as time runs out, a corner kick. Not a corner kick, a penalty kick. And we know from penalty kicks in soccer, they're very difficult to stop. The goalie almost has to take a guess as to which side, because these are professional players. You could kick the ball in the goal, and you're so close to the goalie, you just knock the ball through. So after all of that, they still seem destined to lose the game. But Stallone, in true Rocky fashion, spoiler alert, because it's not going to be much of a movie if they end up losing and going back to a prison camp. Sly makes the save, goes berserk, and lo and behold, spoiler alert, thousands of fans stream onto the field, put coats and hats, and form walls around the Allied players. And they escape to victory anyway. They didn't need to escape at halftime. I guess they just needed to either win the game. They didn't win it, they tied. But it was a tie that felt like a win because they showed up, the bad guys, and they are gone with the wind. Now, I would actually rank Victory I would have to put it in my top 3 Stallone films. And I joked around with the fact that Sly has made so many guilty pleasure movies, and so many movies which are just terrible, just bad movies, that the last Rambo film was atrocious. The first Escape Plan with Arnold was okay. The next 2 were horrible. Expendables 2 I thought was good. I didn't like the first or third one. Haven't seen the most recent one. I would put this third as far as Stallone films. I have to put Rocky 1 first, and I don't know where I would put second, but you could find another film in there of Sly that I would put in ahead of this. You want to go Rocky 3 or Rocky 4, it doesn't matter. But here's something that's a true statement. I've seen Victory more than any other Stallone film, and by a wide margin. It is compulsively rewatchable. I don't think that it's available for free on streaming. It is, you can rent it, for a couple of bucks on Amazon Prime or Apple. You could probably buy it, buy the digital stream for $5. I think it was $5 the last time I checked on Amazon. But this is, for someone who's had such an incredible high-profile career, this movie, I feel, slipped below the radar, even though it was a box office hit. And as I said, it got a lot of press, a lot of activity when it first came out because of the number of famous soccer players in the cast, and that certainly helped the box office. But this, to me, is a movie that has been slept on by a lot of people who would love it if they actually even knew that it existed. There are a lot of people under 40 that have never heard of this movie, didn't even know that Stallone made a soccer movie with Pele and Michael Caine, that kind of thing. It is so entertaining all the way through because it has, as I say, the elements of the Rocky movie. The underdog makes good, and it comes from behind. It has the Rocky movie element. It has a sports film component, and it has the World War II just off in the shadows. That some really horrendous shit is going on in Europe. And if we can score even a small victory for humanity, we've done something. And in the world of this film, they score more than a small victory. Because a small victory would have been just not getting humiliated. A large victory is playing these motherfuckers to a draw and getting the fuck out of here. We made them look like the scumbag clowns that they really are deep down. We got them. Beat them at their own game. Outsmarted them. F to the U. Now, Sly was in his mid-30s. The movie that he had done just before this, he's so busy. It's amazing the schedule that guy kept then, and even it's not that much different now how much he works. So he did Nighthawks. Nighthawks and Victory, I believe, came out in the same year. So if we're going to track what Stallone did, he had Rocky 2, and he had Nighthawks, and he had Victory, he had First Blood, and Rocky 3. Now, those movies were all shot within a 3 to 4 year period. I don't think I left anything out. So he's somebody who was he never stopped working. And most of the films I mentioned were not easy shoots. We're not talking about a film where Sly is wearing the same outfit every day and doesn't have to spend any time in a makeup chair or anything like that. These are difficult movies. And especially with Victory, I hate to say it because we know what a nut he is with this in a good sense, but he had to stay in fighting trim the entire time he was shooting Victory. And then, compare Stallone in this movie, how light he looks to Stallone in Rocky 3. He looks like he's 30 pounds bigger in Rocky 3, and he's still jacked. In other words, he's still cut, because he's obviously very cut in Victory, but Rocky 3, he's got all of his muscle back. And even in Rambo, he looks significantly bigger than what we're presented with in Victory. So Sly was always somebody who could manipulate his weight, but it couldn't have been easy for him to, as such a young person and all of the athletic, and Michael Caine said Sly, even back then he couldn't sit still. What was he, 33, 34? The guy was always doing push-ups. He's always doing jumping jacks. He could not sit still. That's part of why he's been so successful, though. He's never satisfied. He always wants to do more and be more. It's one reason why I've always been a fan, despite the number of terrible movies. By percentage, Stallone has made a ridiculous and unfortunately high percentage of really bad movies, but many of them are guilty pleasures. This is not a guilty pleasure. I will go down on the hill and say that Victory, Escape to Victory, whatever you want to call it, is a really good movie. And time has been kind to it, because if you go on the internet, you look at YouTube, there are people who have only recently discovered this film that rave about it. It has aged very well, even though the hairstyles don't really match. You have 1979, 1980 hairstyles, and it's supposed to be 1940s. We can forgive the film for that. But Victory, directed by the legendary John Huston, starring Sylvester Stallone, Michael Caine, Pele, and a whole host, Max von Sydow, and a whole host of incredible real-life soccer players such as Bobby Moore, Mike Summerby, Werner Roth, and Osvaldo Ardiles. Released on this day, 1981, a 43-year-old movie, Victory. Go see it. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. This has been episode 259 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Tuesday morning with me here in New York. If you catch this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Spotify or iTunes or Podbean or Amazon Music or iHeartRadio, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode sooner than you think. Till then, peace.